All right, today we're jumping into one of the most powerful ideas in management, and that's Herzberg's two-factor theory. We are going to completely demystify what actually drives people at work, and I can pretty much guarantee you the answer is not what you think it is.
You know, it's this puzzle that has completely stumped leaders for decades now. You offer a great salary, you've got these fantastic benefits, maybe a beautiful office, and yet your team just feels kind of uninspired. Why, right? That's the big question at the heart of what we're talking about today.
Well, the answer, it turns out, lies in the work of a psychologist named Friedrich Herzberg. Way back in the 1950s, he came up with this pretty revolutionary idea called the two-factor theory. And believe me, it completely changes how we should be looking at job satisfaction.
Okay, so here's the core idea, and it's a little counterintuitive, so stick with me. We usually think of satisfaction and dissatisfaction as two ends of the same rope, right? You're either happy or you're unhappy. But Herzberg said, nope, not at all. He argued they are two totally separate scales. What does that mean? It means getting rid of what makes people unhappy doesn't automatically make them happy. It just makes them, well, neutral. I love this analogy. Just because you're not sick doesn't mean you're suddenly an Olympic athlete. You're just not sick.
So this whole idea brings us right to the two factors at the very heart of his theory. Herzberg basically split all the things in a workplace into two distinct buckets, what he called hygiene factors and, you guessed it, motivators. And really, understanding the difference between these two, that's the whole key to unlocking real engagement.
Just take a look at this comparison right here. It really spells it out. On one side, you've got hygiene factors. Their job is just to prevent dissatisfaction. If they're missing, people are definitely unhappy. But here's the kicker. When they are present, people are just neutral. Not unhappy, but not really fired up either. Now look at the other side, motivators. These are the things that actually create satisfaction. They're what drive people to really give it their all.
So let's dig a little deeper into these hygiene factors. The best way to think about them is as the basic, foundational expectations for any decent job. They're kind of like the cost of entry to the game. You don't get any bonus points for providing them, but you will absolutely get penalized if you don't. Their absence causes real pain, but their presence, it doesn't really cause joy. So, what are we talking about here, exactly? Well, it's all the foundational stuff. Things like salary, job security, even the company policies and the conditions you work in. A fair salary is, of course, absolutely crucial. Without it, you're going to have a very, very unhappy team. But here's the thing. Giving someone a raise doesn't magically guarantee they'll be more passionate about their work tomorrow. It just stops them from being unhappy about their pay. See the difference?
Okay, now for the really exciting part, motivators. These are the things that are built into the work itself. They're the psychological rewards that create that deep sense of satisfaction and make people actually want to go the extra mile. This is where true, lasting motivation really comes from.
And here are some really powerful examples of what that looks like. You know that feeling of achievement after you nail a super challenging project? That's a motivator. Or getting genuine, specific recognition for a job well done. Being trusted with more responsibility. Having real opportunities to learn and grow. These are the things that fuel passion and that top-tier performance we're all looking for.
All right, so the theory itself is pretty fascinating, right? But the real question is, how do you actually use it if you're a leader? Let's break down how this concept turns into a real, practical strategy you can use.
It's really a three-step process, and it's super logical when you think about it. First, step one, you have to fix the hygiene issues. You got to play defense first. Find what's causing dissatisfaction. Maybe it's unfair pay, maybe it's frustrating company rules, and fix it. Step two is to make sure that foundation is really solid and stable. Then, and only then, can you move on to step three, which is to motivate. This is where you go on offense, strategically building in things like recognition, growth opportunities, and truly meaningful work.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This theory is from the 1950s. I mean, it's over 60 years old. Does it really hold up in today's crazy, fast-paced, modern workplace? And that's a totally fair question. The answer is a big yes, but with a little bit of an update.
See, the fundamental idea that you have these two separate scales for satisfaction and dissatisfaction is pretty much timeless. It's still an incredibly powerful way to diagnose what's going on in the workplace. But what has changed, of course, are the specific factors. For example, today, things like mental health support or the flexibility to work remotely, for a lot of people, those are now essential hygiene factors. And on the motivator side, things like having a strong sense of purpose or being part of a mission-driven culture are more important than ever. This quote right here really nails the key takeaway. Fixing the things that people are unhappy only brings them to a neutral state. It doesn't make them happy. Think about that. Putting out all those fires, fixing the stuff that makes people complain is absolutely essential, but it will never, ever ignite passion. That work just gets you back to zero.
So if there's one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this. Eliminating dissatisfaction and building satisfaction are two completely different and equally important jobs. As a leader, you really have two roles. First, you have to be the chief dissatisfaction officer, making sure all those hygiene factors are solidly in place. But second, and maybe even more importantly, you have to be the chief motivation officer, someone who is actively designing work that is packed with recognition, responsibility, and real growth.
And that brings us to the end. I want to leave you with this final thought, so you can apply what we've just talked about. I want you to think about your own team, or even your own job. You've probably got the hygiene stuff covered for the most part, but what is that one key motivator, that sense of achievement, or recognition, or growth that's missing right now? What's the one thing that could truly unlock that next level of performance and passion?